This does my head in, Toby. Here we go. Oh, fuck. So, today's video is something a little bit different from the usual. I know I've only done 2 before this one, and the previous 2 were more kind of, I want to say kind of day in the lives, kind of not the standard or not the quality of day in the lives that I want to do, but they will get better, I promise. But this video today is something that actually I put up like a question box on Instagram, and it got recommended that I do this, just for anyone who doesn't know kind of like my story, where I've kind of came from, kind of how I've got to where I am now, all that kind of thing, okay? So I'm going to try and keep this, like, I say short and concise, but obviously I'm going to talk about like a wide span of my life, so obviously it will be quite difficult to keep it as short as I can, but hopefully I'll keep it interesting. And I want to just, as I said to you guys way back in the first video, I want to provide as much value as I possibly can to everyone who's watching this, because I don't just want to be talking about like my day and all this kind of stuff, and I will do parts of that, but ultimately I want to give something back to you guys and help other people maybe that are in my position, or when I'm talking through kind of like what I've been through in terms of like the timeline up to now, if anyone's in like a similar kind of spot and things. So that's essentially what I'm going to do. So let's get started. If you're wondering why I have my phone in front of me, or I keep looking at my phone, it's because I have like the order of stuff that I want to talk about written down or wrote down, so that I don't miss out any important bits. So getting into it, we'll kind of start, I'm not going to start from like when I was a kid or anything like that. We're going to start from essentially what I think is like quite an important part in a lot of people's lives, which is like that last year in school. So 6th year for me in school, like I was relatively decent in school. I wasn't like insanely smart. I wasn't below average. I was pretty much kind of just above average, I'd probably say. I could have gone to university in Scotland, but what ended up happening was I got the chance to go to the States, specifically Texas, to go on a soccer scholarship or a football scholarship, play football over there for 4 years and get a degree at the same time. When I was in my 6th year at school, the plan was always to, like as it is for most people as they move through school, is to eventually go on to university at some stage, and that was my plan as well. But I don't know what it was, just university in Scotland just wasn't for me. I don't know how to explain it. I went to a couple open days and things, and it just didn't feel right. You kind of know what like, you know when you've got a feeling or when something just doesn't sit well. And it wasn't like it was bad or anything like that. I just didn't think I'd kind of fit in, or I don't think I'd enjoy it. So I remember hearing about guys that I'd known that had gone away to America and like started scholarships, done scholarships, whatever. And I thought, right, why not try my hand at that? So went for like, to try and keep this short and not kind of draw it out, I went for like a trial game, got chosen, was accepted onto the program. Basically, they kind of like market you to coaches in the US, and then I had a load of offers coming through. That was like the coolest part of the whole process at the start, was just getting like, I remember I was working at B&Q at the time, which again I'll speak about in a minute, but I was like working at B&Q on the checkouts and stuff, and I was like checking my phone every like day, honestly like probably actually every hour when I was on shift, to see if anyone had emailed me. And it was like super cool getting emails through from coaches and stuff about, right, we want to take you to our university and so on and so forth, and offering you scholarships and things. It was super cool. But yeah, so essentially what I did was I made the decision when I was in 6th year to make that jump to go and play football in America, and specifically ended up being Texas was the decision, just out in a city just outside Houston, Texas. And it was quite a strange one, because at that time I was still playing football here in Scotland, but I was kind of starting to fall out of love with it a little bit. So it was one of these things where when I was going out there, I wasn't like, I was fully committed to being the best player I could be and all this kind of stuff, but I could feel, before I went away, I could feel like my love of football starting to die a little bit, or not die, but that sounds a bit extreme, but not starting to love it as much as I used to. And then, to be honest, when I got out to America, like my love for football, I kind of reignited that a little bit, just because everything's like so professional. You're treated like a professional. Everything's done for you. Everything's so kind of like as you would expect it to be somewhere like that. And you're essentially living like a professional, and you start to enjoy it more. You're playing every day. And obviously that wasn't the case the whole time I was there, as I did start to fall out of love with it again towards the end of my time there, which I'll obviously go into detail about. But going back to uni in that last year in school, yeah, so I essentially made the decision to go to America, but because of like, I wanted to make sure I had the savings there to go away. So like the way it kind of works with a scholarship, obviously they pay part of your school fees and things like that, and they pay what they can, or they offer you like a decent chunk of it. And then you still have to cover things like, for example, like you can like spend the money like every week, every couple of weeks, things like that. Like you get your food for you, like you get a meal plan, all that kind of thing. And most of the stuff's taken care of, but it's just good to have some money there, some savings there. And so my mum and dad weren't having to fork out as much. I made the decision to stay, and because I was still really young at the time as well, I think I was still 17, I made the decision to stay another year, or take like a kind of year out and just like work. And that meant me working in B&Q basically full time, like I was full time in B&Q, getting the hours I could just to try and save as much money as I possibly could for going away. And yeah, that was a really, really cool time, because it was essentially just like a year of me like just working and just like kind of training and preparing myself for going away. And eventually obviously I ended up going away on August 2013 was when I flew out there for my first year. And yeah, I remember it clearly. I remember flying out there, or I remember when I actually first left me and my dad, we drove down to Glasgow in like the middle of the night, because the Glasgow flight, that's where we flew from Glasgow to Houston, or Glasgow to London, London to Houston. And we flew down like super late. I think we left Inverness at like, I can't even remember what time, it might be like 11 or 12 at night, because the cheapest flight the next day was obviously like super, super early, down to London, then London into Heathrow, Glasgow into Heathrow into Houston, just so we get like the cheapest flights and things with BEA. So I remember like still driving down to Glasgow. It hadn't really hit me that I was going to be living on the other side of the world for essentially 4 years of my life. And then it wasn't until I think, like, to be honest with you, even when my dad left me at the airport, I didn't comprehend it. And then I think it was when I touched down in Houston, like even when I got to London to Houston, it didn't quite click. And then I remember when I touched down in Houston and I was like, right, I'm about to go and meet, like the coach picked us up, I'm about to go and meet my coach, who I've never met in my life. I don't know, I've never been to this city before. I don't know anyone I'm about to meet at this university I'm going to. It was quite a scary experience, especially for someone who was still quite young. Young physically, like I was super, super skinny and nothing on me. I was young mentally in a sense. Like if you were to ask me, or if you were to ask probably like my parents, would Connor cope with going away to America by himself back then? It's probably like 50-50. Like I wasn't the most confident individual. I wasn't like, I don't know how to explain it, the most kind of street smart, I guess you could say. So going away there, it was quite a big shock. And even like when I remember getting to Texas and getting to Houston, and then obviously driving to where I was staying in the uni and stuff, and that first night in the dorm room, my roommate hadn't arrived yet. I remember that first night thinking, what have I done? This is nuts. Like, and like that's when I lay down in my bed at night. You can imagine like 17 or 18 years old lying down in my bed at night, the other side of the world, quite literally. And I was like, what the hell have I done? And I'm obviously not going to go into detail about the whole 4 years. I'll just talk over certain bits and pieces. But it ended up honestly being like the best 4 years of my life. Just from like the people I met, the things I experienced, just everything, just a different culture. And I think it just helped me grow so much as a person. Again, when I went away there, I wasn't the most confident individual. I wasn't like, I don't want to say I wasn't happy myself, but I felt like I hadn't quite kind of found myself that much. I hadn't really like gained that confidence or gathered that confidence. I've always hid within myself. And I think when I went out there, you almost kind of have to throw yourself out there. And I remember like sitting on the plane, flying out, thinking to myself, right, Connor, we're going to have to go into this like 2-footed and just go for it in terms of like trying to just be yourself, but at the same time try to make friends and be as open as you can with everyone. And that's exactly what I did. I quite literally like went there and was just completely myself. And thankfully it took, and I made like friends for life out there. I don't think the whole time I was there, I don't think there was one person that I didn't get on with or didn't like or anything like that. And again, that's probably testament to the team I was playing with and the guys that I had there. It was fantastic, and it's always going to hold like a really special place in my heart. And the people were phenomenal, and just like it's just I remember just like stupid things like going to spring break and things like that, and just like sitting there. Like I remember we were at spring break in South Padre one year. Was it my second year, my third year, and we were at like this big UME concert, and I think it was like Zed or something was playing, and I was just like standing there. I was drinking at the time, and I was like, this is absolutely nuts that like I'm here like 2 years ago or like something. Like I was like I was in Scotland, I was working B&Q, or do you know what I mean? It's like, not to say I'm like this thing, but it's like, it's just so cool to kind of see the experiences that are out there for people if they just throw themselves into it. And it's probably the most uncomfortable I've been in my life before I went away there, and like that first kind of week or two when I was there, and then it ended up being like the best thing that I've probably ever done to date, plus everything else that's kind of followed after that. So yeah, cutting it short, basically made friends for life there. I had the best 4 years of my life. Honestly, the things I'd done, the things I experienced, the people I met, like I said to you, there wasn't like one person like my team or that I met that I thought, I don't like you, I don't like you, I don't like you. It's like everyone was just a big family, and it was awesome. But at the same time, I remember like getting to the end of that 4 years, and looking back now, it was most definitely the best 4 years of my life in terms of at that point. And it's definitely made me who I am today, and given me that courage and that confidence to take those risks that I've now obviously taken to date. But on the back end of that, at the end of the 4 years, when I did come home, it did come with its own kind of, how would you explain it? Like when I came back, in my head, I was obviously, when I was younger, I was quite naive, and I thought like, oh, I've been away in America, I'm just going to, like, I'll end up staying out there, I'll get a job, no problem, I'll do this, I'll do that. And it wasn't until like the last kind of couple of months or so when I came home and stuff, and then you kind of gone from having everything done for you, like being this like student athlete, this international student athlete who, like, I was loving life, and everything was great, everything was done for you, and then all of a sudden it's like the end of the 4 years, and you're not seeing your teammates every day, you're not seeing your coaches every day, you've not got a schedule there in place every day, you're basically just kind of chucked into the real world, which we all were expecting. But when it actually happens, it's like, right, shit, I need to get a job. And I almost felt like, because I came home and then I stayed home, and then I got into like a kind of, I don't want to say like a bog standard job, because I got into a really good job in finance and had great progressions and stuff, which I'll obviously talk about as well. But I felt that people expected better of me, and I almost kind of, for a good few months when I first came home, probably honestly like maybe like 8 to 9 months when I first came home, after that initial period of being home, I did feel like down, like I wasn't depressed, I wouldn't say that, but I was definitely like, not ashamed of myself, but I felt like I hadn't lived up to kind of my expectations, or like my family's expectations, and what people expected from me, because I'd come home, because I hadn't stayed out there and done something and got a career out there and things like that. I just kind of came home, and I just felt like I let people down. And then even when I came home, I got into a job, and it was ended up being a great job as well, which I'll speak about in a minute. But I still felt like I let people down by maybe not like getting this mad career straight out of uni and stuff like that. And again, that kind of goes to show, I think, a lot of pressure that people put themselves under, especially coming out of uni, expecting everything should be like perfect. So like when I graduated university, I was obviously 22 years old, and it's obviously very, like looking back now, it's very naive of me to think that I should have my life figured out by 22. So, but yeah, like when I first came home, that was my thing. Like I kind of came home and just felt like I'd let people down. I felt like I hadn't done what I wanted to do when I went out there, and all this kind of stuff. But again, looking back on the 4 years, I thought it generally was like the best 4 years of my life to date. Obviously things have happened since then in terms of like the gym opening and all that kind of stuff in my business and whatnot, which obviously kind of supersedes that a little bit. It was a different time in my life, but it was phenomenal. And the people I met, the friends I'll have will be friends for life. And this is what I always say to Ailey, I talk to her all the time about it. Like when we have kids, I'll always recommend that they try and go out there, experience new things, whether it be traveling, whether it be going to university in a different country, whether it be this, whether it be that. It doesn't even have to be like staying away for years. It can be like going away for a few months. I definitely recommend to anyone, if they can, to get away and travel, because I like the last thing I wanted to do when I was back in like 18 years old was travel and things. Like, I had no intention of doing that until obviously I started to realize that I could go away, play football, get a degree, and so on and so forth. And yeah, as I say, it completely changed my life in terms of just who I was as a person. Like it kind of helped me come out of my shell a lot and develop a lot more confidence, and not a cockiness at all, just a confidence of just like knowing how to speak to people, knowing how to kind of handle myself, not in that sense of like fighting and things like that, but handling myself as in like putting myself into situations and knowing how to deal with them and things like that. And it definitely helped in that side of things. So yeah, in short, like I could talk about America all day here, but in short, it was a phenomenal 4 years, and I definitely recommend it. But then on the back end of that, when I did leave America, I left with obviously fond memories and a degree as well. So I had a degree in business, and when I came home, it was basically a case of, for the first, and this is why I kind of got into that kind of downward spiral a little bit. That first month or so, I was obviously unemployed, as most graduates are, especially when I was coming home from America, not knowing if I was going back out or what was going on. And then I basically got a job and in finance, as I've talked about before, my Instagram and stuff. And I was in that from 2017, I think it was. 2016? No, 2016 I graduated. No, I'm losing the head here. 2017, I think I flew home. 2016 or 2017, one of those anyway, I flew home. And then I got into the job a month after that, or a month and a bit after that. And then I was in that job for, I believe it was 3 years, I want to say, 2 or 3 years. So yeah, the job I was in was great, and I had a load of progression there. I kind of had everything kind of mapped out as to kind of where I was going to go with things, and it was always in my head that I was going to work my way up the ladder, and like that was always the goal. And even when I started coaching alongside my full-time job, the goal was never to go full-time with coaching, because back then it wasn't really something that many people kind of did. Like, I think I was one of the first people I had known of that had kind of done that sort of thing, who had eventually gone full-time from their full-time job into full-time coaching and stuff. Obviously now it's very common, but yeah, like back then, I as soon as I came home from America, I was obviously straight into the job and stuff. And even back then, like, I still had a love of finance, a love of fitness, and before I even went away to America, I was in the gym quite a lot. And I remember, like, my last kind of couple of years in America, I really started to take it a lot more seriously, like the fitness side of things, which had been like 2014, 2015, 2016, that sort of few years there. And I remember, like, even kind of coaching a few guys in the team, like writing plans on Word documents and stuff like that for them. So I had a love for it back then. And I think I kind of ignored it for quite a long period of time and just thought it was just like a hobby, it's just something there. And then I think eventually I was into my job, like, how many months was it? It must have been like maybe close to a year I was in my job, or just less than that. And I remember starting to like really seriously consider like pursuing coaching. And I started doing like my level 2, level 3 PT, all that kind of stuff. And even when I was doing that, I never really had any kind of real goals of going full time with it. It still was just a case of, right, I want to do this for my own kind of knowledge. I want to do this to kind of maybe coach a few people and kind of help out. Like, that was always my goal, was to help out. It was never to like get rich or get all this money or whatever it is that people do it for nowadays. It was never that at all. It was always to help people and give as much value as possible. Like, obviously my Instagram page, started posting more on there in terms of fitness and stuff. And like, again, obviously back then as well, like, your mates give you the odd ripping for putting up stuff for your top off. Like, I remember putting my first picture up with my top off and absolutely shitting it, thinking of the ripping I was going to get, and I did get ripped, but that's expected. But yeah, and then I just kind of it built from there. And obviously I was doing my full-time job alongside my coaching and stuff. Obviously at that point I was just kind of learning. I wasn't really coaching anyone. And then eventually myself and who's my best mate, Wallace, we kind of linked up and we coached together. He was already a coach anyway, so I jump on with him, and we did Dynamorph together, and it was fantastic. Like, some of the best years of my life in terms of like what we did together. Like, we were literally, because like back then, like online coaching wasn't really a thing. And I remember like every day we were like posting every single day, just like people talk about consistency now, like, but me and him back then was just day in, day out, day in, day out. Like, I'd be at work, he'd like do a post on like Canva. Obviously everyone knows what Canva is now. Back then nobody knew what Canva was. He's doing like these little posts, you know, those ones where it's like protein options and you've got like fucking whey protein bars and stuff and that. Then I'm writing the captions and stuff, I'm sending them to him. He's like, mate, that's class. And I'm like, that's class. And it's just a proper buzz, and we're doing that every day, and we're kind of building the business and stuff, and we're getting clients and things. And even back then, like, online coaching wasn't really a thing. And I remember us saying to each other back then, like, oh, imagine how cool it'd be to get like 10 clients and stuff like that. Whereas like now, obviously we're far surpassed that, both me and him. But it's one of those things where like I look back on those times and it was phenomenal. And I remember just like we constantly see each other in the gym and things. Like, obviously I'd still be working my job 9 to 5, then I'd come to the gym at night, see him, speak to him. We'd always meet up every Sunday. His beach house, his Nurn Beach house. We'd meet up every Sunday, talk through stuff, what we're going to do, get a chat going. It was class, and it was a really fun time building. And we always speak about this, myself and Wallace, how like those were probably like the best times, because like there wasn't really any stress with it. Like, there was no like all this kind of stuff you see in social media now. There's none of that. It was just like two guys, like two best mates, like just trying to build this business and stuff. We were doing podcasts and things. It was sick. But then eventually got to the point where what would it have been, like before I left my job, I think it would have been. So about 6 to 8 months before I left my job properly, I thought in my head, right, I think, because we just kind of started going down different routes. Like, people used to, like, I think when we stopped working together, people thought there was like bad blood. There wasn't at all. It was just at that time I was going more towards kind of like CrossFit kind of / functional fitness, whereas Wallace was still kind of not so much bodybuilding, I wouldn't say that, but he was going like kind of like a different kind of path with things. So we just thought it would make sense to kind of split up a little bit, I guess you could say. And obviously with lockdown and stuff and things, we weren't really seeing each other as much. I say that we ended up opening the gym together, which I'll speak about in a minute, but I think it just, the way it kind of panned out, it made sense for us to go our separate ways. And then obviously I took on Ailey, or Ailey came and joined the business, and because Ailey's always been into fitness, like anyone that knows Ailey knows she's been going to the gym for years, similar to me, except she was just a bit of a later bloomer in terms of actually committing to the coaching side of things, but same sort of thing with her. She committed to it, and obviously we started work, and again, the same thing for her. She was still in her job when she started and things. And obviously kind of going back before I start getting kind of derailed, I obviously left like me Wallace kind of went our own ways. I started work and whatnot. And then basically what happened was myself and Ailey obviously we put down money on a house and a deposit on the house that we're in right now. And basically I had to make this jump from like where I was full-time and coaching to fully coaching, and it was quite a tough period for me because there's a lot going on with my family and stuff. There's a lot going on with like the house and the family home and things, and it was just chaos. It was all over the place, and it was a really, really tough time. But it was a time where like I was so kind of focused on what I wanted to do. Like I was like I'm focused now. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm so focused on what I do day to day. I've got such a clear vision of where I want to go to. But back then, I just like said to myself, I don't even know when it was, but I said to myself, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a real success of this, and I'm not going to stop until that happens. And without getting in like all cheesy and stuff, I would wake up in the morning for my job, 9 to 5, come home, something quick to eat, go to the gym, come back. Then I'd literally work from like, let's say 7:30, 8 o'clock until honestly about like 11, 12, 1 in the morning with my clients, like check-ins and things. And that was only when I had like 10 clients, or I think max like 12 at that point. And I'd do that with them, and then I'd be like studying for my exams that I'm doing in my other job, because it's still at this point I'm still not quite 100% believing that I'm going to completely leave my job. So there's so much going on. And then I think it wasn't until we obviously lockdown hit and whatnot. Well, it hit then already, so I was working from home. But I remember like we had to sell our family home and all this kind of stuff, and we had to move out and things. And I remember myself and Ailey, we put down money in a house, a deposit and whatnot. We got into the house, should I say. It was like December time, I think we got in, and then I basically just like chucked in my notice to work, my job like a month after that, I think it was, because essentially like anyone who knows, when you're self-employed, it's very difficult to get a mortgage, or like a company director, it's difficult to get a mortgage if you just started. So I had to still be my job to essentially get the mortgage and get everything sorted and get in the house and things. So once we got into the house and it settled for a little bit, that's when I put my notice in. And don't get me wrong, I've kind of missed out a big part here, but I built my clientele base up to a really, really decent amount before I left my job. So I think, and this is, I say to guys all the time nowadays, like, because people speak to me, like people don't know my story, people ask me and speak to me and ask for advice regarding kind of when they should leave their full-time job and stuff like that. And I feel nowadays a lot of people are in too much of a rush to do this. I took as you can tell, there are probably years, like what would that have been, 3-4 years to leave my full-time job, 3 years I think it was. And that was like 3 years of like steadily building my clientele base to the point where I like asserted myself as like a well-respected individual, a well-respected coach in the industry and in this area. So I knew I was not going to do nothing but continue to grow my business. But I made sure I had like savings in the bank there in case it all went arse to tit. I made sure I had like consistent income each month. I made sure that everything was there, like everything was set up. I wasn't like, if 5 clients left or 10 clients left, I wouldn't like absolutely shit myself and wouldn't be able to pay my mortgages and things like that. I made sure I had all that covered. And that's what I tell guys now all the time. Please don't be in a rush to do that, because the best part of this whole thing is the building the business at the start of the process of like, you're not under as much pressure to get clients. You're not in as much pressure to build the business. It's just a case of going in and getting clients if they come, giving value to people, giving the best service you possibly can, and just building your business. But then you've got income obviously coming from your full-time job as well. So it's a great kind of time to be in. But then eventually I knew myself, like, right, I know I can take on more people. I know I can be busier. I know I can do this. I can give more value. I can be a better coach. And then that's why I made the decision to quit my job. And obviously on the back of quitting my job, everything just skyrocketed. Obviously myself and Ailey, we working together now, both company owners, directors of work, taking on employees and things, and we'll continue to take on more and more in the next kind of few months. And yeah, everything just went absolutely crazy. like we're now in the position like we could never have even dreamed of in terms of where we're at with our business. And even like back then, like when we started making that kind of jump to Ailey coming on board fully and leaving her job and stuff, it was just a great time. And it's like, don't get me wrong, it comes with its hardships, like working together so closely, but it's phenomenal. Getting to like share everything we do together, it really is class. But yeah, in terms of after that, we then moved into obviously the gym situation. So we opened our gym. So myself, Ian and Wallace, we came together, and this again was something we were speaking about for years. And finally in like lockdown, we kind of like committed to it. We put in the plan and permission, and it all honestly just all happened so quickly. Like if you speak to Ian or speak to Wallace, they'll say the same thing. It's just one of these things that happens so quickly. We just like, 1 minute we're putting like plan and permission in, 1 minute we're seeing a unit, and the next minute we're gym owners. And obviously we've had that now nearly 3 years, I believe it is. So yeah, that in itself was like a massive thing for all of us. Like my dream had always been to open my own gym, because like back in the day, online coaching wasn't really a thing. So like back when I was like into fitness, it was always like I want to open my own gym. It was never like I want to open my own online coaching business, because it wasn't a thing back then. But to then do it and like obviously get the keys, and then when we did it all up, the process of doing all that was absolutely sick. It was class. And even now, like we always say it, me and the boys, so yeah, if I look like I'm in a different position, I maybe am. I have to recharge my battery on my camera again. It's horrendous for some reason. It's probably my own fault. I basically mucked about with this video like 30 minutes before I actually started doing it, so that's probably why it's run out of battery. But yeah, where we kind of left off was obviously talking about the gym, and like I said, this was like a massive kind of, I wouldn't say like turning point in my life, but it was kind of one of the points in my life where I, for the first time probably, or second time maybe, where I kind of like, I remember the night before we opened for like open gym, because we couldn't do group classes back then because of lockdown. But I remember like standing there the night before open and thinking, right, this is like, it just kind of goes to show that if you work hard and put in the graft day in, day out, then you can essentially achieve whatever you want to achieve. And I know that sounds super cheesy and super out there, and it is just a gym to some people, but to me it was just this kind of big pinnacle in my life. And I think that's why, like from that point onwards, like obviously our business was doing well then, but I think from that point onwards, everything in my life, I just kind of thought to myself, why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? And that's why like now I have these like massive goals in my head of what I want to achieve, and what I want our businesses to achieve, obviously both the training club and work. And I know what I want to, like I know why I want to achieve those things. I know what I want to do with those, and I know how I want to help people. I know what to do like longer term. Like I've got everything kind of mapped out in my head to a degree. So yeah, it's just one of those, like I said, it's just one of those moments where you're just kind of like, right, I've done this, and I'm super proud of myself. Probably like the one main time in my life where I've been like properly proud of myself and what I've done and what I've accomplished. And yeah, so obviously we opened that and things, and that was, I want to say it was a struggle, but it kind of wasn't. Like obviously there's a lot of stuff we had to do there, but because we had the three of us, myself, Ian and Wallace, we kind of were able to like divvy up the workload. And then like even the thing of like doing up the gym and stuff, like painting it, like we make a running joke in the gym, we painted, like we must have spent thousands on paint. We must have spent weeks and weeks on painting the gym. Obviously when we moved in there, it was just all white walls. Now it's all black, and you can imagine how long that takes. And obviously at the time, nobody told us, or we didn't think to figure out if there was a way to like, we've later on figured out you could have just sprayed a coating on the walls, and then the paint would have taken to the walls a lot better, as opposed to us doing about 5 or 6 coats quite literally, taking us weeks and weeks and weeks. All right. But yeah, even that was like fun. And then like getting the workout equipment in and stuff, it was a good time. And obviously at that point I was still in the process of like finishing like or working my notice period for my job. So I was like working from home at the time, because obviously lockdown. And then I was getting emails saying like the equipment had arrived. We had like an assault bike in our house and stuff until the gym was ready. And it was a really cool time. I think it was a really stressful time that was kind of masked by the fact that we're just having so much fun with it. But yeah, it was absolutely awesome. And I think just to do it with those two guys as well was fantastic, because like I've said to people before when they ask me about like getting into business with someone else, it's such a big thing to do. But those are two guys that I trust so much. So it wasn't really an issue at all. And even now, 3 years on, like we're still like loyal to each other. We always help each other out. If someone's got something on, we'll cover for them, or whatever it may be. So yeah, it was again one of the best decisions that I've made in my life was taking on that gym. And we're looking forward to building it, which again I can't wait for the next few years to see where it goes. And then obviously kind of leading on from there, I was going to check my phone to see what the next point would be, but my phone's run out of battery as well, so we're not in a good place. But yeah, after that, I guess it was just a case of myself and Ailey building the business further and further alongside the training club. So this is where things, like, to be honest, after we got the gym up and running and stuff, it was great, and it was just fantastic balancing it all. But then that's when things started to get really, really busy. I don't even want to say stressful. Like, obviously they are stressful, but it's like a good stress. I don't know how to explain it. When you're working for yourself, like, I'm probably stressed 24/7, but it's like a good stress. I don't know how to explain it. It's not a stress of like, oh crap, what's my boss gonna throw at me on Monday, or do you know what I mean? It's not that at all. It's more just like, I've got this to do, I've got that to do, I've got this to do. It's all things that I want to do, all things that I enjoy doing, but it's just, there's just so much of it there. And sometimes my stress comes from myself because I set myself like almost like not unrealistic expectations, but I want everything to be perfect. I want everything to be done here and now. I'm getting better at being more patient with things, but I want everything to be perfect. And if it's not, like, I can never sit still. I always have to be doing something, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is something I'm learning to get better at. And one of the things that I'm trying to do now is, obviously, as we're starting to like build a team around myself and Ailey, is getting better at, number one, being like a company owner, a director, alongside obviously continuing to be like the best coach I can possibly be, which I'm continually trying to level up. And then also just being a better leader. So my idea is to build a team around myself and Ailey, but I want to be a good leader for them as well. I don't just want to have someone come in and be an employee and just give them stuff to do. I want to try and kind of help that individual become a better person, become a better coach, like provide for them and their family and all this kind of stuff. I know it sounds a bit cheesy and a bit kind of deep, but that's essentially what I want to do with the business, and that's where I want us to go, because in my opinion, if I can build like a happy team who are like thriving and being successful, then of course that's going to kind of lend itself to a better business as well. So yeah, we've got a number of things there to do in terms of like work, and then obviously the training club, and it's just go, and then I've got other things in the back of my mind, other things that I want to do and stuff, and yeah, it's super cool. And just like right now, like we're in like a really, really good place. But like I said, off the back of probably when we opened the gym, which is 3 years ago now, I think from then onwards it's just got like really, really busy for myself and Ailey, and obviously with her coming on board and stuff as well, it's got busier and busier for her. And obviously we've got Emma on board, and then we've got a few other coaches we're now getting on board as well, which is going to be fantastic, which we'll be announcing in the next kind of few months, which I can't wait for. But yeah, it's like Ailey will say the same thing. You're just constantly busy, but I wouldn't rather be doing, like, I couldn't do anything else, all right? Like, I literally love it. Like, the best description of like how I feel just now is, or what it's like to be in this position where you're doing something you love and it's like your passion. And this is why I always tell people to try and follow the passion if they can, is like when we came back from holiday, our most recent holiday at Tenerife, I remember like back in the day, like holidays in the past, you'd be dreading coming home to work and stuff. Whereas when I was on holiday in Tenerife, I was buzzing to get back. I didn't enjoy the holiday's fantastic, but it's like, you're just ready, like after a few days, you're like, right, I'm ready to get back after it. I want to just get back to the grind. But yeah, it's one of those things where you start to just enjoy waking up in the morning, in terms of like, right, Monday morning, boom, let's go, let's get after it. And it's just like, that's why I always tell people, and when coaches or potential people who are trying to become coaches start to message me and stuff and ask about like, when should we leave our job, when should we do this, when should we do that, I try to like give them both sides of like, right, it's one of the best things I've ever done, but at the same time you have to just be really methodical with it and make sure you're not kind of jumping too soon. But yeah, it's an awesome place to be in, and I wouldn't kind of trade it for anything else. Like, it's so busy, and I know I talk about it all the time. People probably get fed up with me saying the word busy, but it is just generally go. For example, right now it's 12:30 in the evening, I'm doing this video. A lot of that's to do with the fact the camera ran out of battery, but I wouldn't, like, I love doing this. I wouldn't rather be doing anything else. But yeah, it's busy just now, and obviously like leading on, like, I know the timeline that I wanted to kind of put this on is all going all over the place, but hopefully you guys get the gist of what I've been saying. But we're now in the position where myself and Ailey are just trying to build the business more and more. And as I said, build a team around us at the training club. We're trying to build that more as well. We've got help now on board. We've got someone going to be helping us grow in the business, and there's just so many things we've got going on. And it's a fantastic place to be in. And yeah, hopefully that gives you guys a bit of an understanding of where I'm at business-wise, and in terms of like a personal kind of standpoint of where I'm at in terms of like my training and things. I know I've kind of talked more about business, but in terms of where I'm at training-wise, and my journey as an athlete is right now I'm probably the fittest, strongest, best I've felt in the gym. And again, similarly to business, that's come after years and years and years of doing it. And my kind of main goal now is to keep trying to get that balance of being a business owner, obviously being a fiance, being an athlete, and just making sure I'm showing up and being the best version of them every single day. Obviously, kind of trying to train like a full-time athlete while trying to be a business owner and this and that is very difficult, and it comes with its own challenges. For example, sometimes I might go to the gym and my performance might not be amazing because I've had a stressful day the day before, or it's just been so busy that I've like zapped energy from the day before, and I go into a session, it won't be the greatest, but I've gotten better and better at knowing how to deal with those sort of situations, knowing what I need to do like kind of before I go into the session in order to make sure that I am showing up the best athlete I can possibly be. But yeah, the main goal for me now moving forward is obviously next year to do my first kind of individual competition. Like obviously I've done competitions, but just never to an individual level. And I'd always said to myself that when I eventually do make that jump to do my first individual comp, obviously it's going to be like at the RX Elite level. And I want to make sure that I'm showing up and not making a fool of myself. Like I don't just want to go there and just take part. I want to make sure that I'm going there and really striving for something. And that's why like I've kind of put it off and off and off, because I just want to make sure I'm in the right place for doing it. And yeah, and that's kind of basically where I'm at. But I'm looking forward to kind of share my journey more and more in terms of everyone on this channel, obviously, and on Instagram and everything like that. And just trying to be a bit more open and a bit more transparent about what's going on and how I'm dealing with being busy, how I'm dealing with the stress, how I'm dealing with being an athlete, being a coach, being a business owner, and so on and so forth. Like, I don't want to get like boxed into this thing of like being like an online coach. Like obviously I'm a coach first and foremost, and I'm going to show up every day and give my best to the clients, and I want to make a team of absolute animals. But at the same time, I want to give value in other ways as well. Like obviously helping people understand like a bit more about how to maximize like their potential outside the gym, not just inside the gym, and just become kind of better person overall. Because I know myself from myself focusing on other areas, not just in the gym, but outside, like eating better, sleeping better, like speaking to myself in a better way, like reading certain materials, like just all these kind of things that like back in the day I didn't even know about really, how that's helped me become a happier person and just filled me with energy and allowed me to do kind of things that I never thought possible. But yeah, before I keep kind of blabbing on, I'll leave it there. I think that's been quite a bit of time. So obviously it's gonna be quite a long YouTube video, and probably the longest one I'll do, but I want just to kind of give a bit of an insight into kind of my life and my journey up to this point from back basically 6th year up to now. And obviously I could have gone in a lot more detail with stuff, but as you guys probably know, with a YouTube video, I can't be having like an hour-long YouTube video, right? So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. As always, like, subscribe, comment, all that kind of YouTube stuff. And obviously I'll think about what I'm going to do for the next one, which will hopefully come the next week or two. But yeah, until then guys, speak to you soon. And as always, any questions, just feel free to reach out to me on Instagram.